What's going on, guys? Today I wanted to bring you another 2014 WCQ H.A.T format combo and coaching video. Today I wanted to talk about one of my personal pet decks, and that is Mecha Phantom Beast. It's not necessarily the most competitive deck, but I think it has a lot of potential, and this is going to be the more Xyz-focused and control-focused version of the deck. It'll make a little more sense if you've checked out my Mecha Phantom Beast deck profile, which if you haven't checked out already, I definitely suggest pausing this video and going and checking that video out. Hopefully I'll remember and I'll have it linked in the description of the video. So if you pause this video, go check the description and check out the deck profile if you haven't already, and then come back to this video. And in general, I think this deck has a ton of potential and it definitely can do some really cool things. It reminds me almost like a 3.5 axis Fire Fist deck, where it has two main focuses in the deck, one part being the setup and control side of the deck, and two, the overall combos that the deck can do. Though this deck does need a little more setup, but it is very strong into a lot of the meta decks, simply because the whole gimmick of Mecha Phantom Beast summoning tokens and then not being able to be destroyed by battle or card effects while you control a token is something that's very cool, because it allows you to play through heavy back row a lot of times, outside of maybe a couple of the decks that are randomly playing Dimensional Prison. And other than that, it just overall is a very solid deck. Protection from the destruction means a lot of times if you're going against one of those artifact decks, the Madolche is going to have to pop one of your tokens, because if they try to pop your monster, it just won't be destroyed. So that is really cool. So I'm excited to get into this. So let's get started. So like I mentioned, there's two sides mainly to this deck. The side that has all the cards that are used for your setup, and all the cards that are mostly used for your combos. So I first want to distinct and kind of separate the two sides of the deck so you can see what I'm talking about. So starting off, usually your main combo pieces for the deck are going to consist of some combination of Harliard, Cultwing, Fiend Sanctuary, and Double Summon. And then I guess kind of the honorary is also going to be Megaraptor, since it is your Stratos for the deck, it's your searcher. But this can also technically fall under the category of your setup pieces. And going into some of your more common setup pieces are going to be things like your Tetherwolf, your Scrap Recycler, and your O-Lion. And mostly because, you know, your Scrap Recycler is going to get your O-Lion in graveyard, and O-Lion is basically another version of Double Summon, since when it's in graveyard you can banish it and immediately normal summon an additional Mecha Phantom Beast. And that graveyard effect is not once per turn, which is something that a lot of people forget. So if you have multiple O-Lions in grave and multiple Mecha Phantom Beasts in hand, you can use multiple of these effects. The only part of this effect that is once per turn is when it's sent to graveyard to summon a token. That part is once per turn, but again, the additional summon part is not once per turn. So one other thing to note with that is going to look at some of these Mecha Phantom Beast cards in general. They all have two parts of their effects. They usually have one token generating effect and also one additional effect. And the thing to note with that is their summoning token effect is usually mandatory. So for example, if we look at Megaraptor here, it has the first line here that when a token or tokens is special summoned to your side of the field, special summon one Mecha Phantom Beast token with, you know, the usual stats. And that effect is once per turn, the token generating part of the effect. But again, it is mandatory. But then I guess we can also quickly look at the secondary effect, that once per turn you contribute a token, add one Mecha Phantom Beast monster from your deck to your hand. That effect is not once per turn. So if you have multiple tokens and multiple Megaraptors on the field, you're able to use the search effect multiple times in a turn. So that's a very interesting part of these cards that a lot of people tend to forget. And another thing that people tend to forget are cards like Fiend Sanctuary that simply just summon a token work in this deck because if you saw in those effects, it just says tribute a token. It doesn't specifically have to be a Mecha Phantom Beast token. So if you have something like your Mega Raptor, and we'll talk a little more about this later, you're able to basically summon this, activate Fiend Sanctuary, summon a token. This will trigger because you summon a token to summon an additional token, and then you contribute the Fiend Sanctuary token or the Mecha Phantom Beast token, whichever you prefer. If you tribute the Mecha Phantom Beast token, then obviously you'll lose the additional levels that this card gains by having a Mecha Phantom Beast token, but you can still, get rid of either token to get your search. Now, like I mentioned, a lot of your combos do require anywhere from 2 to 4 cards, a lot of times needing 3 to 4, which is kind of difficult to get to. But what's cool about this deck is a lot of your cards can kind of double as other copies of other cards, and the later the game goes on, the more chances you have to actually do your combos, despite not having as many cards. And so the big thing is you want to look at your opening hand and kind of see, do you have more of your combo pieces already, or more of your starter cards that kind of get you into your grindier game that this deck can actually produce. And so if, again, you see more of these top cards here, you know that you have a lot of your setup, and you want to slowly start looking for these cards and collecting those pieces. So even if it's as simple as, summoning a Scrap Recycler, sending an O-Lion will summon a token, and then banish the O-Lion, summon the Mega Raptor, tribute the token, and search one of these. You want to slowly start collecting those pieces. Now, the one thing to note as well is, again, how I said that the O-Lion can count as a double summon in a lot of cases. Other things besides, obviously opening your double summon, if you see double summon plus your O-Lion, these do not contradict with each other. So in theory, if you have an O-Lion in grave and a double summon, and you use both of the effects, you can in theory summon up to 3 monsters in that turn, saying that you have them in hand, and those are just your normal summons. Other things to note are that we do play cards like Foolish Burial, so there's ways to get, your O-Lion into grave a lot easier without using your normal summon like the Scrap Recycler. And how I said that as games go on longer, your cards become more valuable, because the more that you can kind of use your resources, it means when you get to your soul charge plays, you're able to basically soul charge back your monsters, and a lot of your combos can start from there as well, which should be a given. But the cool thing is for example, like cards like Cult Wing, when they're special summon while you control other Mecha Phantom Beasts, you're able to summon your 2 tokens, and so that's kind of a way to get past and bypass some of those restrictions of needing normal summons or just needing extra special summons and things in order to get all your pieces kind of together. So there are a lot of cards that kind of work together to get you to that place. And even if you just see these, it might not seem like you're ending on strong boards, but the cool thing about that is you are playing a lot of cards that help you survive in those situations. So for example, we are playing copies of Enemy Controller, we're playing copies of Spiritual Wind Art Miyabi, and cards like Horn of Heaven, as well as we are playing other cards, for example, Breakthrough Skills, Warning, Torrential, your usual staple-like cards. So you do have multiple ways to actually slow down the game and survive, and these are very powerful cards, especially in a format like this. Having cards like Horn of Heaven that kind of count as extra copies of Solemn Warning, since you're able to tribute a monster and then negate the summon of a monster and destroy it, is very strong. Or Spiritual Wind Art, being able to tribute a wind monster, which almost all your monsters are, outside of maybe like Scrap Recycler and some of your hand traps and things. And even things as simple as switching their monsters to defense position or stealing their monsters by tributing is very good. And something that's really cool, which I mentioned in the deck profile, is Mecha Phantom Beast Harliard, a lot of people never really like this card, but this card is so key because it has the effect that once per turn when a monster you control is tributed to activate a card or effect other than this card, you special summon a Mecha Phantom Beast token once per turn. And so the thing to note with this card is it does trigger off of these. So for example, if you have a token and a Harliard on field and you tribute the token to summon or to activate the Horn of Heaven, you will then get an additional token. Meaning if you have multiple of these and, the Harliard, if you activate one of these and tribute a token, and then the Harliard summons a token, you will then have another token that you can use with some of your other copies here. The other card I want to mention here, though, is Aerial Recharge. I'm only playing 2 copies of this at the moment because I think this card is only good in this specific build once, you've already kind of established yourself, or once you're basically at the point of establishing yourself. And so if you've never seen this card before, once per turn you can special summon a Mecha Phantom Beast token with the usual Mecha Phantom Beast stats, and then during each player's end phase, tribute 1 token or Mecha Phantom Beast monster, or send this card to the graveyard. So one thing to note is how I mentioned that these cards at the top trigger your Harliard to summon a token. Aerial Recharge, despite saying that you have to tribute a token, it's considered a maintenance cost, so you will not get the additional effect of Harliard to summon a token, again, because it is a maintenance cost versus actually for the effect. Alright, so actually getting into some of these combos or interactions, as you should really call them, as again, a lot of times they do require a lot of cards. Something you need to keep in mind is the order of which you activate your cards in this deck does matter quite a lot. So let me give you an example here, just a very basic example. If we have, say, a Tetherwolf, a Double Summon, and a Mega Raptor. This also doubles with, again, if you have your copy of O-Lion in graveyard, you can just banish it to get the double summon type effect. So depending on where you are in the game, and if you see this or have this in graveyard, it can work the same way. So in theory, this somewhat works the same way with Foolish. But let's not talk about with Foolish for now, simply because it would trigger the O-Lion effect. So in terms of order of operations, I'm going to go with the worst version first. So let's say you start your turn by normal summoning Tetherwolf, right? Tetherwolf's effect will trigger and summon a token. From here, if you activate your double summon and summon your Mega Raptor, sorry about the glare, you have this as your field, right? And so here, because, you have a Mecha Phantom Beast token, these are going to be level 7. So you have the option here of just keeping this as your board, or you can overlay these for one of your 7s. In this deck specifically, again, you should watch the deck profile if you haven't already. Your 7 options are going to be your Big Eye, your Gaia Dragon, and your Draco Sack. So what you could do is, again, obviously you could just leave this as your board. You could use the Mega Raptor effect and tribute the token and get a search of any monster, let's just say Mega Raptor, because Mega Raptor can search Mega Raptor, and then here you could, overlay for a rank 4 if you wanted to, right? So that seems all right, or, if you say didn't search and you just keep your token, what you're able to do is just overlay these for a 7, for example, Draco Sack, and then you can use Draco Sack's effect, summon 2 more tokens, and then use the Draco Sack effect if you wanted to, and pop a card. It seems very decent, but you can get a lot more value out of this whole setup if you just change the order in which you actually go and activate your cards or play your cards. So for example, if you start your turn, instead of summoning the Tetherwolf, you summon the Mega Raptor, and then here you use double summon the Tetherwolf. The Tetherwolf will summon a token, and then because a token was summoned, you get an additional token. So here, now you basically have the same type of setup, but what you can do instead here is you're able to use the Mega Raptor effect and search if you wanted to. So you will get, whatever monster you choose. Let's just again say another Mega Raptor. And here you can leave these, but the difference is by using the search, you still have your protection from destruction because you still have a token. As well as even after your search, you can still make a 7 and still make the Draco sack if you wanted to. Now, the one cool thing with the other version of this whole thing is when you would go and just have these two on board, because there's no token, you had, again, already searched, you are able to then, if you wanted to, overlay these for something like a copy of Geargia X, and Geargia X can search you another card by detaching a material, and, that can search you a 4 or lower machine, so if you want, you can find one of your other combo pieces that you want. You can even search stuff like your scrap recycler, which is a very good starter as well. Now, your biggest combo in this deck, and probably one of the coolest ones you can actually do, is going to consist of these 5 cards. Now, you don't need all 5 of them because some of the pieces are interchangeable and you're going to be technically searching throughout the combo as well. You really just need your Mega Raptor for sure, and kind of a combination of these. So, your Mega Raptor can search one or the other. So if you open the Harleyard throughout the combo, you're going to search the Coltwing. If you open the Coltwing, you're going to search the Harleyard. And the other thing to note is, again, cards like Foolish Burial basically replace these two. So if you see some combination like this, then it gets you to the same point. There's a couple other weird combinations. Even just having the O-Lion in graveyard suddenly replaces your double summon, like I mentioned before. But for this example, let's just say that, this right here is what you have. Let's just say, you drew your 6 cards and boom, you already opened 4 of the cards needed for this. And it's not super uncommon because in my build right now, I'm playing 3 Mega Raptor, 2 of these, 2 Coltwing, 2 Fiend Sanctuary, and 2 Double Summon. I've talked about it in the deck profile that I go back and forth with upping the ratios of these. So how this is going to work is you're going to go and start by normal summoning your Mega Raptor. From here, you're going to activate Fiend Sanctuary, which is going to go and summon you a token. Now here, because you summoned a token, you're going to be able to special summon another token, a Mecha Phantom Beast token from this effect. From here, what you're going to do is you're going to use the Mega Raptor effect and tribute your token. So here again, this is your hand here, and this effect triggers, and you are going to search a copy of your Coltwing. From here, you will go and activate your double summon and summon your Harleyard. Now, Harleyard has the effect that you can tribute a token and special summon a Mecha Phantom Beast from your hand. So you will use that effect and tribute your token and special summon your Coltwing. Now, Coltwing has the effect right here that this card special summon 2 Mecha Phantom Beast tokens. Their usual stats. You must control another Mecha Phantom Beast monster to activate and resolve this effect. So here you are going to go and summon 2 Mecha Phantom Beast tokens, and here is, your basic board that you want to see. I'm going to move these down here just because of the glare, but this is your board. You have 5 monsters. Everything, your 3 monsters can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. And because you have 2 Mecha Phantom Beast tokens, right now all of these are going to be level 10. So here you have a couple options. You could leave just these, which is a solid board. They all have protection. So even if your opponent dark holes, it's only going to kill the tokens. You're going to get to keep your 3 monsters. But the other thing to note is we are playing some rank 10s, which are very good. So say you had this board going second and your opponent had no interruptions, you are able to just push in with monsters and make these. And so this is Super Dimensional Robot Galaxy Destroyer, which needs 3 10s. So you could actually make this in this case, and it's going to be a heavy storm that once it's activated, your opponent can't activate spell or trap cards in response to this card's activation, which is crazy. Again, a 5,000 beater. You have cards like Sky Palace Gangaride. Say you're not able to attack, but you need to out a card, and it will also do some damage. And then obviously Gustav Max to do some damage too. But let's say you don't want to go for a rank 10 here, and say maybe you want to go for a different rank. What you can do is use the other effect of Cult Wing that it has at the bottom here, that once per turn you contribute 2 tokens and target a card your opponent controls and destroy that target, and if you do, banish it. So this can banish a card your opponent controls by tributing 2 tokens, which, conveniently enough, you have your 2 tokens here. So you can tribute these, destroy and banish a card your opponent controls, and here you just tributed monster or monsters, a tokens, to activate the effect of a monster. So Harliard will trigger here and will actually summon you one of your tokens. And so here, now these are all 7s. So you have some more options, because now, again, you can go into one of your 7s you have here, which is also really cool. You could go into, say, use 2 of them and go into a Draco Sack and get an additional pop of a card. So here you've been able to pop, 2 cards, banish one, and destroy the other, and you're still going to have plenty of monsters. And what's cool about that play too is you have your tokens and protection, so your monsters still can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. And, Draco Sack is a Mecha Phantom Beast too, so it has that built-in protection, and also it has the option to actually make tokens. So say in this board you overlay these for your Draco Sack, you can use this effect and get 2 tokens, so that way at no point during that activation are you going to have no tokens on board. The only time your opponent would have a chance to respond, for example, would be, in a sense, if it's a card that isn't going to be a destruction card, or at the point in which you have this and you just tributed your 2 tokens. But even at that point, there's not a whole lot of destruction on that point there, because there isn't any point in which you special summon, so they can't torrential you or bottomless you right there. And it's just overall really solid, and it just gives you more options on what you want to do, whether you're going first or second. Now again, that is like a final blow type of combo. If you see combinations of these cards, or even see some of those other cards that I mentioned previously, like these and, your different trap cards and things, you don't have to overcommit. It's just showing that there is some of the more mid-rangey type stuff, so you can make some of those explosive plays while also playing a more control style game with some of those trap cards and different things that we do play in this deck, as well as, again, you do have really good follow-up with Soul Charge. You have your usual type of protection and stuff. Using cards like MST, you play things like Maxi in the deck. So it's just kind of a mid-rangey type deck that, again, I think has a lot of cool potential, and it just needs a little more exploring. I do have a more synchro style build of this deck that I've mentioned in the past that I hope to profile if enough people actually enjoy this type of deck. One other really funny interaction that I've had come up is with these here, opening multiple Mega Raptors, plus a Fiend Sanctuary and a double summon. This can also be, obviously, again, swapped out for O-Lion, and in a lot of cases, the O-Lion is going to replace the double summon. It's just so that there's more copies. But so a funny little interaction I've had with this is being able to stick a Mega Raptor on board, so whether that's normal summoning it or just having it from a previous turn, and then having the Fiend Sanctuary, activating the Fiend Sanctuary to go and summon one of your tokens, and then this effect will trigger again, and you will get a token. So here's your board. Again, for this example, let's have O-Lion Engrave, and from here you could, even if you don't open the other Mega Raptor, you're able to use this effect and tribute and get a search, and search your other Mega Raptor. If not, what you're going to do is just have the other Mega Raptor, use the effect, tribute your token, and get a search, let's just say in this example, for a copy of your Cult Wing. And from here, you can, if you have your normal summon the Mega Raptor. If not, use the O-Lion, banish it, and summon this. From here, you can then tribute the token, because the secondary effect of searching is not once per turn, and search another part of your combo piece here. So here you can search your Harliard, And lastly with this, what you can do is overlay these for a copy of your Geargia X, and Geargia X can activate. This will go to graveyard, and you can search another card that you need. So for example, if you wanted to search your Scrap Recycler, you have these 3 cards, and in a sense, that's the combo that I just showed, the bigger combo, because you'd start your turn by, say, like normal summoning this. This effect will activate, you can send an O-Lion summons a token, you get an additional summon, you're able to summon this. The Harleyard, and then the Harleyard, there's already a token on board, so you can use the effect and special this. You might miss out on some of the effects throughout that because you now have an additional body, but if you have something, say, like an enemy controller or just one of your other cards that can be used as tributing, you're able to get this off board, or bare minimum, you just crash it and then main phase 2 make your whole play that you want to do. So that's kind of another neat little interaction there as well. But anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like on it, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to get notified anytime I put a new video out. Comment any questions you have or videos you'd like to see in the future. Again, this is one of those decks that I don't think it's the best deck of the format by any means, but I think it has a lot of potential and it can definitely do some cool things. Again, it's kind of one of my pet decks that I play around with a lot, and I'm always trying to change up the build and improve it and try to make it more interesting. Again, check out that deck profile if you haven't already. It'll explain some of my choices a little more. But yeah, that was it. Test it out, see what you think, and hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.